This is the way the 1987 hoses are hooked up. At least this one 87. I'm not saying all of them are like this. This one here goes to the brown plug vacuum switch. The green plug vacuum switch hooks up right here. This is your Egr valve. It hooks up right here. This goes into the filter thing, like over here. See the way the valves are set up, the orange on this side, this one underneath, the red is on this side. And that's about it. Oh yeah, it has that little one down underneath there with the filter. Oh, look at that. Vacuum leak. We'll fix that. Alright, plugging that vacuum leak out of the carb there. Dropped it down to from 800 to 750 RPM. I switched these. The forward one here hooked up to the top, which is forward. And the aft one hooked up to the carb down there where that, and that lowered it another 25 RPM. So fixing the vacuum leak there, dropped it down to 700, from 800 to 700 RPM, and that dropped it down a little bit more, so I think I'm running about 675 right now by switching the front one. I had these reversed, so the front one goes to here and this one to here. With it reversed, it increased the RPM about 25. Yeah, so every vacuum line closed, everything plugged, period. Even the ones I disconnected are plugged. Idles down to about 650 RPM. The reason it takes off because the vacuum isn't hooked to this. I pull that up like it had vacuum on it. Pull that back this way, then that releases it and it idles down even lower yet. Probably less than 600 RPM. Every vacuum line plugged on the carburetor. So basically, if you can do that, if you can't do that, then your carburetor is screwed up. You're chasing leaks and you're trying to find something wrong with it, but it's the damn carburetor. So I'd recommend that if you want to figure out, isolate the carburetor, plug in all the vacuum lines, except for maybe the front one here that goes back to the vacuum advance. And it's got to have a little bit of vacuum advance to run, I guess. You should be able to get it to idle really low. Run the car like this without the air filter housing, then make sure you plug that vacuum hose. I'm just going to kind of sit here and wait for the choke to pop. That goes all the way down, which when this gets vacuum, it should push that all the way down. And it's a little loose there, so I'm going to need to bend this up so that it pins that choke wide open when this is under vacuum. Idling really nice. bent that tab up, and watch what happens when I reconnect this hose. Now the choke is straight up and down. That's the way you want it. That's tight. Here's a standard carburetor off of these four-wheel drive Tercels. This is the primary cutoff, and sometimes it has two wires, usually on the early models, 83, 84, and then the later ones it has the two-wire one. But it doesn't really matter, just as long as there's juice getting to this thing continuously while the engine's running. If this thing isn't working properly, meaning the little piston there clicks, you can, if it doesn't click, this is now functioning, then it'll idle in a kind of like a cycle, because you have to keep the idle up high enough to keep it idling, otherwise it'll die. And as you lower the idle, it'll start so, and that's because this thing isn't working sometimes. And to tell if it's working, if you hook this wire up to a battery and try to get juice to this thing, if it's two wire, you'll have to hook the negative and the positive. But you should be able to hear it click even while it's in the carburetor. But if you pull it out, it's easier. And also, if it doesn't click, try wrapping it on a tabletop a few times. Sometimes it frees it up and it'll start working again for a while. So that the idle going up and down kind of cycling can be caused by this solenoid malfunctioning. So you need to check and see if it's working. Usually as soon as you disconnect it, the engine will die, especially on a low idle. And you have to increase your idle, and to get to the point where the engine will keep running but it cycles up and down, then that'd be the first thing I would check. The secondary, which can be a single wire or a two wire depending on which car it is, doesn't have anything to do with the idle, so you don't need to worry about that one. Plus, I usually cut the wires and put these on them so I can swap carburetors out a lot quicker. You don't really need to cut the red one. You can leave the plug attached to the red one. It makes it a lot easier to unscrew these from the carburetor. What I did here is, for the fuel cut solenoids, this is a 1987 vehicle. It has two wires coming off of the solenoid back here, one wire coming off of the solenoid over here. What I did is I rigged it up so that when there was juice going to the solenoid, these lights would come on. I started up the car, and of course both lights are on, so I'm going to bring it up to idle and wait for the choke to open. Just to prove that the lights have to be on. That means the solenoids have to have juice to them. I'm going to disconnect this wire and see what happens. This car dies right off the bat. Okay, now let's see what happens when I disconnect to this side of the carburetor. Nothing. So you can run it this side disconnected, doesn't seem to affect anything. But this one has to have juice going to it. And the juice comes in on the black wire.